Hello and welcome into Reality Check. What is going on? Matt O'Leary alongside Jets Chaos. Jeremy, what is going on, my friend? How are you?
What is up? What is up? We want to tank. We want to tank. We tanked. He stinks. Fire the coach. I love this fan base.
It is. It's going to be ugly. I think the final three games here. We'll talk about the defensive coordinator change. The Jets signed one of their young players to a contract extension, and I think we start there with the news that the New York Jets agreed to a 2-year contract extension worth $10 million, an upside to $11 million with tight end Jeremy Ruckert. What'd you make of this contract when you heard the news, Jeremy?
At first, the number actually felt high because I thought of Ruckert as a guy who, just in the offseason, we were talking about like he had to compete for the job. Then we brought in Smart, because we had signed Smart. And then in the middle of the season, Jelani Woods. And I'm thinking like maybe we draft someone. He's fighting to even keep his tight end 2 spot. Then what I saw was they like Ruckert, obviously. I don't think it's the number got less to me as I realize, and I'm adjusting to the new NFL and what salary means. At first, $5 million 2 years in a row felt like, real money. And then I realized the cap keeps going up. There are position players making $40 million now. There's one making $47 million. And that $5 million really isn't a lot. And obviously they like him. He definitely has improved. I know that a lot of people don't want to acknowledge that. People, once they dislike a player, they won't budge on it. But the reality is he has played better. And he's a solid tight end too. And it's not that much money. If you're filling that role and saying this is our solid tight end too, and that role is filled, and it's actually a position you use a lot, you play a lot of 12, he's blocking a lot, and he's doing the things he needs to do. He's clearly improved. They like him. It just checks a box for us, right? It's tight end too. Check.
Yeah, exactly. And he's played a decent amount of snaps this year too. When you look at it week by week, I think his lowest was like 34%. Oh no, he had one game with 28%. But most of these he's playing, 40% of the snaps. So that shows how often they use 2 tight ends. And that's kind of one of the new, fads of the NFL. We go through these cycles. Everyone's running 11 personnel, and now 12 personnel is the big thing. And look, for Rucker, I think we were all kind of critical of him after the season that he had in 2024, and it was certainly disappointing. But I think he's bounced back this year. He's someone who I think, absolutely could be a part of this tight end room. You have Mason Taylor on the cheap. Stone Smart and Jelani Woods haven't done anything this year to make me believe that they'll be back next year. But I don't think this contract necessarily stops them from adding a tight end 2/3 maybe into the room. And for Ruckert, it also kind to me, I agree with you. When I first saw the number, I was surprised, but it depends on how they structure it, right? Like if it's similar to how they did it with the Josh Myers contract, yes, it's a 2-year deal, but with the guaranteed money, it's essentially a 1-year deal because they can get out of it for virtually nothing in that second year. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something similar with Jeremy Ruckert.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the way the contracts have been structured, Moogs it's beyond good for Moogs. He's actually creating a trend in the league. They're saying that Moogs, and I don't know if anybody else did it, but I read an article that he's actually going to. They said the way that Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner's contracts were structured is actually innovative and something that other GMs will copy. The fact that we were able to trade Sauce Gardner right after signing him without a tremendous cap casualty and that fact that he was movable and there was a way to do it is not consistent with a lot of contracts that people have signed. A lot of times these players sign these big contract extensions. You can't trade them. You take $100 million cap. I mean, look at the deal with Aaron Rodgers. Look what that did to us. Look at what the cap we're eating now that you couldn't get out of it. So these deals have been very good. So I'm sure when you get the details of the Rucker deal, you're going to be very happy because the one thing this GM has shown is he structures these contracts in a very low risk way where we're not too committed to anybody. right? But yet we have team control if we need them and they play well and they respond well.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And for Jeremy, right? Like he serves a role on this team, and he's going to be that, blocking tight end, which was something coming out of school he was very good at. Kind of, regressed, I think, a little bit in 2024, but is kind of back to being that. And there's value there. And I wanted to go to John's comment here, saying that Jeremy has definitely played better this year. And Harlan saying yes to the new coaches. Ruckert is playing better. So I think there is a role and there is a purpose for him here. And like I said, assuming how the contract is going to be structured, if it is the way that we think it's going to be, then I am totally fine with this. I really have no issue with it.
Yeah, I feel like he's for the most part not, he's when he's running routes and expected to catch passes, he has. There were a couple of games where he actually really, made some nice catches for us. Look, a tight end too is not the guy you're looking for that's going to be the hero of many games. He's not the guy that's going to win you the playoffs of the Super Bowl. He is a guy, though, that I think has to make his blocks, and I think he's been doing that. And he is a guy that if you do call his number on a play, you need to trust he's going to hold on and catch the ball. And I think that he's done better at that. So, he checks the boxes of a tight end too. Not many teams are going to have like a superstar tight end too. That's why the Ravens, for example, probably won't be able to retain Isaiah Likely because he's too good to be a tight end too.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that seems like, a great call out. Like he's going to leave and go somewhere else. It would be, I would imagine.
Right. So as fans, you have to respect and appreciate that. You have to say a tight end too is not going to be a star. He's not going to be somebody that you're crazy about. He's going to be somebody who does his job and he fills a role. And the only other alternative would be, I could see a fan being upset, is if you wanted to draft another tight end. And we're hoping to get somebody better that way that was still cheap and inexpensive. But I think we have so many holes on this team. Anytime we can find a value guy to fill and check one of those boxes, we should grasp onto that and do it. You know what I mean? Because we have way too many holes to have to now think about drafting a tight end in the first and second round. That's not to say if a guy like Sadiq fell onto our lap, that there's always exceptions, right? There's always, in a draft, there's always exceptions if a best player available comes.
Use a lot, not a lot, but a chunk to retain some of their own guys, right? They just did it with Josh Myers. They did it with Jeremy Ruckert. Wouldn't surprise me if they decided to do it with a guy like John Simpson. And I'm sure there's others that aren't coming to me right now off the top of my head, but I think it's a wise approach to start getting the ball rolling here on guys that you decide are a part of this team's future and success.
My wish list is extend Tippmann now. That would be my wish list. The number one thing I would want to see more than Simpson is Tippmann. Joe Tippmann just locked in. I don't think it's going to happen because I think where he is in his contract, that's the kind of thing that happens in the offseason. But it's something that I would love to see for Joe Tippmann.
I want to pull up this comment, super chat from Bang Mateo. Thanks for the super chat, Bang. It says free agents Fant and Cade Otton are better and cheaper. I don't think either one of those guys are going to get less on the. Cade Otton's not going to get $5 million AAV on the open market. I just don't agree with that. He's definitely a more proven tight end. I don't, I'm not going to fight you on that, but I don't think he's cheaper.
Well, he also has to want to come here. You don't know that he's going to come here. Like you're saying he's cheaper, but what if Kansas City makes him an offer? What if, what if a team that is going to make him the tight end one makes him an offer? We have a Mason Taylor.
He's a tight end one already.
Right. So why would he come and be a tight end two? Because Mason Taylor had a decent rookie year. He's still clearly the plan for us to be the tight end one, and he's playing with a terrible quarterback play this year, obviously, Mason Taylor. He's done very well. And if you look at history, tight ends get much better. Like they don't start at their prime, right? They typically progress and get a lot better as their careers go. I think Mason Taylor's our number one. I don't know why Cade Otton would want to come and take a back seat to that. And I don't know why we would want to make him a tight end one and, push Mason Taylor's development away. Like that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So, but again, the number one thing is you just don't know that they're going to come here anyway. We have a guy that we know and we like. They like him. He fits into their system. They feel he's doing a good job. Why would they gamble that? They're just locking him down. They're getting their guy locked down. That's all it is.
Yeah, we're talking about a depth signing here, right? Like, and that might be the new norm. That tight end twos are getting around $5 million, with starters probably getting closer to 10. I think the two guys that you listed off are starters and going to be getting a lot more money than a $5 million AAV.
Right. And if they are, then it's really like we are not in the position to go out now and start outbidding people for players.
No,
Like if you say, oh, well, Jeremy, just pay him more than anybody else, and then you can get him to come here, even if we're not, even if he didn't want to come here. We don't want to start doing that. We don't want to start paying this New York Jets extra salary, tax because we stink. We don't want to start paying that tax now in the middle of a rebuild. We just started the rebuild. We're clearly got a million holes in this roster. We got a million draft picks. We got a ton of cap space. We're in a rebuild. I'm not putting my money into a tight end too. We got Mason Taylor. Jeremy Ruckert is fine to check that box, and it doesn't cost us that much. I'm not going to go out and start spending a lot of money on another tight end. That's not the position of need right now on this team. We've got some serious needs on this team. It's not tight end. It might not be that I'm saying waving the flag and saying we have a great tight end room and Mason Taylor's still got a lot to prove. But come on, man. We need two edges. We need a linebacker, a great linebacker, and maybe even another. We need two safeties. We have so many needs on this team. I'm not worried about the tight end too.
Yeah, I wanted to pull up this quote from Aaron Glenn on the Jeremy Ruckert extension. I thought it was an interesting one. He says, I'm harder on Ruck than anybody, and the reason why is there's so much meat on the bone with him. He's improved so much. He's tough. He's physical. He's versatile. Run and pass game. He's been pretty valuable for us. To me, that says that they have, a plan in place for the guy. And I know that conversation or that phrasing scares people, right? Because they've said they've had plans for guys that haven't been success stories here. But I think they view him as someone who can play a little bit of H-back and improve the run game. He's improved his pass catching ability this year, right? Drops were a big issue for him last year. That hasn't been a thing at all this year. And with Mason Taylor banged up, I think we'll get to see, a little bit more run as Jeremy Ruckert as a starter, right? Isn't that one of the things that you want to watch for over the final 3 games?
I definitely want to see more of him play. I mean, there have been times where I've gotten very excited about his play, especially in the last year, because in the old coaching regime, he was missing blocks and it was very concerning. And we said, we obviously didn't have a good coaching staff, especially on the offensive side of the ball. And now we've seen some improvement, and that's a really nice thing to see. And we get to take a better look at it. I need to do a quick shout out. A mutual friend of ours and a friend of a lot of people in the chat got very sick. And we almost had a tragedy, and that was Johnny Boy. And Johnny Boy I spoke to him this morning, and I wanted to give an update that he's feeling a lot better. He's doing a lot better. He's got a pathway to go home from the hospital soon. So guys, keep him in your prayers. Johnny, it's great that you're here watching. We love you. And that's genuine. They can make fun of me like with the Olbrook thing. That's a big joke. No, Johnny Boy, I love. This is a friend of mine who I care deeply about. He's got a big family, a lot of kids, and we almost lost a very important person in our community, and the world almost lost a very good human being. So, Johnny, man, keep getting better, buddy.
Very well said, Jeremy. I spoke to Johnny on Saturday. Was glad to hear that he was doing better, and even the updates today. That's awesome. Glad to hear it, that he's on the mend and hopefully home soon to that fam of his. Big part of our Jets community here on YouTube for sure.
Yeah.
A couple more comments on the Jeremy Ruckert conversation. Boss Girl 8 says it's tough to judge anyone on offense considering they've been working with the worst collective quarterback play in the league. I think that's also a valid point, right?
I agree 100%. That's exactly why what I say about people who are already acting like Mason Taylor's not a tight end one. Why? Because he had his rookie year. First of all, it's his rookie year on any team. Rookie year. You got so many great tight ends in this league. If you look at their stats from their rookie year, you're not going to be blown away. And then when you consider the quarterback play on this team, and you expect like a rookie tight end to have 1,000 yards. It's just not going to happen.
No,
It's not going to look
it's
like that.
got, Brock Bowers comes into the league and that becomes the uh the bar, right? Everyone's got to be like Brock Bowers in year one.
And if you watch those Raiders games, he was their only weapon. I mean, they threw the ball to him constantly. You see, they're not doing that with Mason Taylor. He's not their first look. Like Bowers, that rookie year, watched the games. He was their first read. He was literally first read, quick plays, slants that they were utilizing him, and he's special. Mason Taylor's a different kind of player because he's a Mason Taylor is used as a blocker. Also, he's used in our running game. He's
more traditional tight end.
More traditional tight end, whereas Bowers, and someone's saying it, Bosco's saying it really well, Bowers is a slot receiver.
Right, and that's not a knock against him by any stretch.
Yeah, that's not a put down. That's a fact. If you watch the film, he's lining up as a slot receiver, literally. So it's not a knock on Bowers at all. They're just two different type of players that are going to have different results.
Exactly, and for Mason Taylor, I think he's shown it, and he's 21 too. I think we forget how young he is too. Like, I think it's a good point to mention that rookie tight ends usually don't come in and light the world on fire, and they usually get better with term. And offensive tackles, another position where you see that pretty often. And for someone to be so young and come in as a starter, a day 2 pick tight end, come in and be a starter, and he's not lighting the world on fire, but he was fine for the Jets, right? And especially when you consider that, it was his first 13 games of his career. I think there's reason to be optimistic about him, especially in an offense with improved quarterback play.
Yeah. And again, no one is saying that if a guy like Sadiq dropped in your lap, or no one is saying in the 4th round, if there's a gem that you love, that your scouts love, that you can't take another tight end. No one is saying that. You definitely can. You can bring tons of competition to that room. You're not even financially obligated to Jeremy that much longer. So, like you said, you can get out after 1 year. So there's nothing wrong with putting more talent in. But all I think the point is, because as Mason Taylor is trying to prove he could be a real tight end one, all I'm saying is there's no gun to your head. That's what I'm saying. There's no gun to your head. You're not in a position where it's like, we have to take a tight end. There are so many positions on our team that there is a gun to our head. We have no edge at all. Michael Clemens is our freaking starting edge all year, and you all hate him. And he's a free agent. Do you want to bring him back? Is he the answer? If he's gone, all you have is JJ, and Will McDonald is a pass rush specialist. That's it. So you need 2 real edges, really, right? So the safety room, worst in the NFL. So we have very, very real needs. So all I'm saying is tight end, there's no gun to your head. There's no gun to your head. But again, if Sadiq was to drop to you and you love him, I don't think any Jet fan will complain if we grabbed him out of Oregon. I mean, that he's special because he's an elite player.
I like this comment, and you're right on that, by the way. I like this comment from James, who says it feels like Ruck and Myers in that perfect tier of player to prep a rebuild. Role players prep you to upgrade, but aren't immediate needs. More cap for other holes, and talking about linebacker, safety, edge, guard, all positions that I would look for the Jets to look to address in probably both free agency and the draft.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that we will address some of it in the draft. We're going to address some positions in the draft. We talked about free agency, that it's not going to be a huge, big name. We're not expecting a very, big, impactful free agency. But this team has showed, or this regime has showed so far, that they will find value picks. Like, they might be able to do some filament of these needs. Maybe not the permanent solution, but guys that can hold the role until you are able to upgrade it. Because let's face it, we're not going to replace, or we're not going to be able to replace all of our and fill all of our holes in one offseason. It's just not possible. Like, we're not going to be able to do it. We have too many holes, right? So some of it is going to have to just be like those kind of role, really good value players. And I think that's what we just saw with tight end 2, Jeremy Ruckert. That was a value move.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot more value moves I would expect from this Jets team, right? I don't think any of us are expecting a 2019 Mike McCagnon spending spree coming our way in free agency.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think there are guys we could sign that aren't going to be ridiculously expensive because of that position. Like I keep seeing, like Chris has it there, Chanel, like Leo Chanel. Like I think there are guys that might be out there that, they're not going to be, I'm not saying cheap. I don't know what their cost is, but they're not going to be 30 million, 20, 40 million. They're not going to be these crazy high prices. You might be able to get a guy in the teens of millions. You know what I mean? That it adds a lot to the team. Like Leo Chanel would add a lot. That would be a big pickup for us, I think.
Yeah, I like Leo Chanel. I like Alex Anzalone. I know he's a little bit older, but I think him coming in and the tail end of his career to help bring this defense along in Aaron Glenn's vision. I think he could serve a role on this team, and he wouldn't be crazy expensive. And that's probably a short term deal that in the state the Jets are right now, I would imagine they're going to want to go with a lot of short term deals in free agency. But I definitely think it's for Jeremy Ruckert, a decision that they decided to be proactive about. And I think for Darren Muji, that's been a trend for him so far, right? Like going into the year, it became obvious that they weren't good enough at defensive tackle, and they go out and they trade for Harrison Phillips and Briggs. And then clearly things weren't working out with Michael Carter. They flip him, get a wide receiver back in John Mechie, who's under team control, and then also obviously go out and add Brownlee, a player with upside.
They're showing they're really, I mean, if you're going to give pluses and kudos to Moogs, you got to give him credit for he's not finding stars off the garbage heap, right? I mean, they're good, solid role players. Like it's the beginning of building a new roster. Briggs, Brownlee, Mechie, AD Mitchell is a throw-in. They're not the stars, but they're important role players because you have to have 53 men on your roster. So you have to have players. Some of them might rise and be starters. Like Brownlee looks like he's going to be the starting slot, and he might be top 10 in the league the way he was playing, which would be amazing, right? That would be great. That's and Briggs, I don't know if he's just rotational, if he's going to ever be like that full-time solid guy. But Briggs has been, one of the best surprises of the season. There's not been a lot, but if you talk about pleasant surprises, Briggs has been really good against the run. A very solid defensive tackle. And his run stoppage has been great. So, Moogs is showing he's able to do a lot of that. And as far as free agency, I think no matter how much you say it, no matter how much you try to explain the need, there's going to be angry fans because every year they want to sign the biggest free agent names. I think 27 is going to make those fans happy. Like, I think if we improve next year, and that's a big if, we have to improve. If we improve to 6-7 wins and a lot of these picks and these new guys start working out, and then we have all that draft capital in 27 and all that money in 27, I think you're going to start to see the teams make some big moves.
Yep. I'm definitely with you on that. I wanted to get into the Chris Harris defensive coordinator, him taking over the defensive coordinator role. I have some audio from Aaron Glenn, but before we do that, got to shout out the sponsor of the channel, Sleeper. Think you know football, then try to turn your football knowledge into real money with the Sleeper app. It's the ultimate fantasy sports app that can turn game day to payday. You just download the app, pick more or less on your favorite players with more stats than any other daily fantasy app. Just choose 2 or more of your favorite players from pregame or live. Pick more or less from the predicted stats, and you could win up to 1,000 times your money. If your picks win, use my promo code O'Leary, and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. New offer, free $20, no deposit required promo. Terms and conditions apply. All right, let's
responding to Matt Marger really quick. How many years do I have to hear we can't fill all the holes in one season until it's not the truth? That's how many years you have to hear it until it's not the truth. Right now, that's reality. You can't fill all the holes in 1 year. And if you do, it's going to be a terrible thing to do. Like the way you would have to do it. You don't build winners. It doesn't work. If you try to get all free agency, what happens is then you run out of money, and then you get stuck in these bad contracts because they always have bad endings to them. It's just, it doesn't work. Like you have to build through the draft. It's just the reality that we're in. We have too many holes. You know how fast the money goes? I know everybody's saying, oh, we're going to have this much money this off season. We also have still 22 people leaving. 22 players are leaving. So do the math. Even if you have 90 million left, divide that by 22. Like, we can't fill all the holes. We just can't. And if you're saying it as just frustration, I'm with you. I'm frustrated that it's we're in another situation where we can't fill all the holes in one offseason. I'm with you on that. But maybe that's the way you meant it, but that's the reality. That's the reality. It's like, so yes, you have to hear it because it's the truth. Like, we can't fill all our holes in one offseason, and everybody knows it. We still need a quarterback. So that's going to have to be either our first pick of the draft, God knows how much other asset, or a lot of money if we don't do it during the draft. I mean, we're in this reality, and I don't think last year we were in that situation. The last couple of years we have been filling all of our holes. It just didn't work.
No. Yeah. And then they were a veteran roster and they underachieved. They went 5-12 and, sold off some pieces. And now here we are. Right. And it's a tough spot. I don't want to be in this position either. But you're right. Like, we're not saying that free agency, like, you never go into free agency. It's supposed to be used to supplement your roster or put you over the top, but you have to be able to build through the draft and with shrewd trades. And he's shown with these trades that they've been able to get, playable guys. And I think he's going to do it again this offseason with all the day 3 picks that they have.
Right. And I think we could be respectable next year if things go well. I don't know that, but if we pick well and if we fill those roles well, hopefully we can get to 7 to 8 wins. Like, we could show real progress and be a young team going in the right direction. And then we have all this draft capital and everything will be going our way. We'll have all this money, all of the draft capital. I mean, but it's much healthier to look at it as a 2-year rebuild than try to fix it in 1 year. The fixing it in 1 year is signing a guy like when we signed Le'Veon Bell. That was how we tried to fix it. Because if you try to go for big name stars, you're going to use up all your money with 2 players. I don't care which 2 stars you bring me outside of quarterback positional players. There's no 2 positional players that you're going to bring in here and then have no money left. That's going to solve our problems.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to work. But yeah, maybe in 27 you bring in a big name, and then in 28 maybe like as you're getting really good, like the Bills, like the Rams did, maybe at the end you bring in that final piece. Yes, but we're not at that point. There's no magical 1 or 2 players that's going to come in and rescue this organization.
No, nope. That's just not the spot that they're in. Unfortunately, there's a lot of work to be done. It's going to be a busy offseason. And one of the things they might have to do is find a new defensive coordinator. Steve Wilks is out. Chris Harris comes in. Here's Aaron Glenn talking about why Chris Harris was his decision for the interim DC.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys knew that he had other DC opportunities or interviews before this year, and we actually interviewed him ourselves, and he did a really good job in that interview. So I think he's more than capable. I think he's more than ready to step into that role and do a good job.
So he sounds pretty confident in Chris Harris, and that is true. Obviously, he's saying it, but they did interview him for the DC role. He did not get it. Steve Wilks did. Steve Wilks out. First, your thoughts and reaction, because we haven't talked since Steve Wilks was let go. Your reaction to that, and then what we're looking for out of Chris Harris over the final weeks of the year.
Look, I'm not giving Aaron Glenn credit for firing him because Aaron Glenn hired him, right? But I'm also not complaining and crying, get rid of Glenn because he had to fire them. I'm saying I'm disappointed you hired him to begin with, but at the time I didn't know he was that bad either, so I'm not going to pretend I knew. And I'm going to give you credit also. Yes, you hired him, but for not being stubborn, for not being afraid to admit it, that you were wrong and that you let go of him. What really pisses me off is you have so many of the fan base saying, you have to fire Wilks. He sucks. And then when he does it, you're still not happy. Instead of saying, good, they did the right thing. That's what I wanted. It's, well, why did he hire him to begin with? And why did Aaron Glenn say the other day that he was going to let him play out the system? Why did he do that? Like, you never heard coach talk before. And it's like, come on. You wanted him gone, and he's gone. They did the right thing. You're allowed to give him credit for that. It doesn't mean you're saying Aaron Glenn is your guy and you love him and you think he's going to win a Super Bowl and that you're a believer of his. It's just saying that you're allowed to say two things could be true. You could still dislike Aaron Glenn. You could still think he's not the right coach for the team, but you could still give him credit for firing someone who needed to be fired.
Do you think, because I see it in the comments, and J-Boy's not the only one who said it, do you think Woody Johnson had to do with this? Do you buy that conspiracy?
For a second I did, and I don't. No, not at all. It's not Woody at all. No way. I don't get that impression at all. I think it's the opposite. And I think the people that are closest, agree with it too. Because, Connor Hughes would love that story. He'd love to say Woody's mingling again. And Connor Hughes came right out and said, there's no way I would believe that Woody had anything to do with that based on his proximity to the team. Connor being there and covering the team. He goes, this was not a Woody decision. This was Aaron Glenn 100%. And now when you analyze that press conference, he was separating himself from him. He was prepared.
That's exactly what I was going to say. The last 2 weeks, it felt like his tone has changed on Steve Wilkes. And to me, what I think happened was, obviously you watched back the tape early Monday, and I think it got to a point where you saw, not that I like this, but Jermaine Johnson and Quincy Williams like refusing to speak to the media. I just think it reached the boiling point and was like, we can't do this for another 3 weeks. We got to move on now. It was going to happen eventually. And let's just see what we have out of this guy, Chris Harris, the rest of the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's what we have to do. It's funny because I see a lot of people talking about like tanking. We're not tanking. We're this, we're that. Garrett Wilson, if this season had any meaning, if we were in the playoff race, would not be out with no explanation. Brady Cook wouldn't be starting, right? Tyrod Taylor would be. Like, there's a way to tank without trying to tank. Like, in other words, the players on the field will play their heart out, and you expect them to play the best game they could play. But as an organization, you do things that are pretty much shutting down. And we are clearly shutting down, and I think it's funny that someone's thinking Woody had nothing to do with foolish, because this is foolish. Being convinced that he did have something to do with it is what's foolish. You know what I mean? Because you don't like him, that means he must have had something to do with it, because he did it in the past. There's no evidence that Woody is mingling with this at all. All we've heard up till now is that Woody Johnson is bought into their plan, that they have this plan, that he bought into the trades, that everything is fine. He's not fighting anything. That's what we know. Is it impossible to think that Woody's not involved? No, I'm not naive to say I know. I don't know. It's all opinion, but there's no evidence, and there's nothing that suggests that Woody has anything to do with any of this.
Right. When Mike, here's an example. When Mike LaFleur was fired, we found out that Woody Johnson was very involved with that. Have you heard anything except for just fans theorizing that Woody Johnson had anything to do with this? Were there any reports?
Right. And that would be Woody doing the right thing. So what are you even complaining about? Like, that would be Woody actually saying, what are you doing? This guy is terrible. Everybody knows he's a terrible defensive coordinator. Get him out. Like in some ways it would be a sign of, Woody's becoming a better owner. Like, not that I want him interfering, but I'm saying in this case, he would be right. So make up your minds. Are you saying Woody's not a good owner, but meaning we shouldn't have fired Wilkes? Because Wilkes had to go. He was terrible. Like, it was a good message to let him go, to say, hey, anybody in any position on this team, any role that you have, whether it's defensive coordinator or whether it's player, if you don't deliver and you don't perform well, you're gone, because that's the nature of this business.
Yeah, it is. And like I was saying, I think this was more of the product on the field is getting worse. I understand that the personnel isn't very good on defense, which, is going to make life hard for Chris Harris, trying to prove that he deserves this job after 3 games of this at the end of the year when you're 3-11. But with that said, Steve Wilkes, it's got to be on him that they're not ready to play every week, and that the scheme is terrible and they're stubborn and won't make any adjustments. That's on the defensive coordinator. No.
How many times have we seen them give up? I mean, jogging. We pointed it out in Green Bay was reacting to the game. We're watching guys jog. Like Adams, the fact that Adams is out. I don't know if he's really out because of injury or he's just out. Like, again,
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter because it doesn't hurt the team at all that he's out because he's so terrible. But there's film, clear film where he's giving up. He's literally not trying as hard as you could see it. He's literally going around the block to avoid the block, putting him out of a position to make a play instead of inviting the contact and pushing the blocker into a lane to block the running back, or to at least create the running back to have to do something other than just run through a clear hole. So, I mean, it was so blatant on a play, it was disgusting. So, yeah, he had to go. When your players give up on you, goodbye. And so many players out of position all the time. The only thing that I'm going back to Harris, because that's what we're supposed to be talking about. One of the concerns I have about Harris, I'm believing that he could be the long-term solution and not just an interim coach, is that he was the pass defense, like the pass coordinator of the defense, of like stopping the pass.
Yeah.
So that kind of worries me because I'm not impressed with our pass defense as far as the amount of guys that were wide open. Like there was too many miscommunications. Cisco played terrible, but he was never that bad in Jacksonville. So it's like the out of position safeties, just guys wide open, running across the field, being burned by the same kind of play over and over again. Yeah, at the end of the day, you fire Wilkes, it falls on Wilkes. But now we're promoting the guy that was literally in charge of the coordination of pass defense,
which also hasn't looked good. So I guess that's a good spot to kind of turn the conversation and get into Chris Harris with him as the defensive coordinator. Do you have any expectations for him? Do you think there is a chance he could be the defensive coordinator in 2026? Or is this, hey, good luck, kid, you're going to have 3 games here and then we're going to do a deep search and you'll be on your merry way somewhere else?
It would be like so hard to imagine him winning this job because first of all, he has no talent to do it with. Like, what magic is he going to pull out of his hat anyway? Even if he is qualified and even if being in charge would be a difference, he has no roster. Like, I mean, right now that defense is terrible talent-wise, right? We all know it. We have terrible, we have Michael Clemens as your edge. There's, again, like no linebackers, no safeties, it's a terrible situation. So if he was to somehow make this defense amazing, like what if in the next 3 games we give up under 16 points in all 3 games and the defense is amazing? First of all, we'll all jump off a cliff because that will mean that we will probably win a couple games and then screw getting a quarterback ever in our lifetime. But that would even still be a question because even if we had 3 amazing games, I know our fan base, at least I don't know if the organization would feel this way, but our fan base would say it's garbage time. New England had the division wrapped up. Like everybody would come out and say 3 games is not enough. Go out and get a proven guy. So even if he somehow magically played great with this roster, which I can't imagine happening. So I would say it's about a 0.01% chance that Harris could get himself the DC job.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really hard for him to do enough in the 3 games here to make you feel confident about, bringing him back in 2026 to be the guy. And, I don't know if that's fair to him, but at least he could put on his resume interim DC. And when he goes around and interviews for future DC positions, maybe they take that into account. I think they'll certainly take into account the situation that he was put in with, the roster and only 3 games left. But we talked a lot about, or have talked a lot about guys like Jim Leonard and Al Harris and, Jim Schwartz, if he shakes free from Cleveland as guys. I think that's a much more likely route than we're here in 2026, a year from now, talking about, Chris Harris as the defensive coordinator for the Jets.
Yeah. I mean, so he's fighting it up. Look, he's just a guy filling a role for 3 weeks. That's all it is. It's not real. And I know they try to create something with he was interviewed and he was considered an up and coming coach. But you're considered an up and coming coach based on what though? There's no evidence, and like I said, how in 3 weeks with this team is he going to manage to prove that he could be a coordinator? That's good. That's going to make us choose that over going over trying to hire a known name. There's going to be known names. There's going to be staffs that are, head coaches that are fired that can become that were good defensive coordinators. There's going to be staffs that are fired where the defensive coordinator was good, but the whole staff was fired, so it's not their fault. Like there's going to be opportunity to get a proven defensive coordinator. My hope is that they get it right this time.
Yeah, without a doubt. Chris chimes in. I love this comment. It's a perfect description of the issues the Jets were having on defense: gap integrity, fundamentals, discipline, basics, executing details, techniques for our New York Jets, etc. That none of that was happening with the Jets, right? Their gap integrity is horrible. The fundamentals are bad. The linebacker play has been horrible this year. Quincy Williams was tagged for 3 touchdowns in the game against Jacksonville, Jeremy.
Yeah, it was just, and that one of my biggest concerns is, we told this guy he's lost his starting job. He responded and had the best game, that he had within, the last year and a half, and then went back to being sucky, and then we didn't bench him again. Like, why did we allow him to stop giving effort again? Like, clearly, if you have to threaten to bench him and threaten his job and say you're benched and take him out of the starting position to get him to play well, it's not a guy you want on your team.
No, it's definitely not.
So, I mean, we're limping into the end of the season. Like, you're seeing them do it. They're shutting down Garrett Wilson. They're shutting down anybody that's banged up. They're limping out of this season. And believe me, these guys are gone. Quincy Williams is so gone. He's gone.
Without a doubt. And, Aaron Glenn announced that Brady Cook is going to start again this week, which isn't a surprise at all, right? I kind of figured he would ride out the rest of the way, and God love him. He's going out swinging, man. He's chucking the ball down the field. There's, 5 interceptions in a game in 2/3, but, he's trying with the bare bones of a roster that it feels like a preseason game. Like the next 3 games are going to be preseason games for the Jets.
It kind of is. And it's like, again, there's a difference between tanking, losing on purpose, and the winning is not a priority, obviously, because if gun was to your head, if the game meant anything, Brady Cook wouldn't be starting it, right? So clearly you're in a different mode. You're in a mode of evaluation. So maybe you don't want to call that tank. No, but I don't think the players are being told go out there and lose. But we're making decisions that no longer are prioritizing winning, clearly. Because if we were prioritizing winning, Tyrod Taylor would be in the game. Garrett Wilson would be playing. I don't believe this nonsense at all. They're talking to the doctors. He had a sore knee. Like, it was like they knew what the injury was. Yeah, that was in the beginning. He was trying to practice from the 3 days after they announced the injury. He was out there trying to practice. So this is all just, again, not the team. They're not sitting there saying we're tanking on purpose, we're losing on purpose, but they're doing things that teams do when winning is not the priority, but you're now thinking towards the future. Miami's doing the same thing. They're benching Tua, not even for Zach Wilson, but for this kid, Urs from Texas. What do you think that is? They're evaluating. They're saying, hey, let's use these last few meaningless games to find out if we have anything in this kid.
Yeah, that tells me that they have no plan to bring Tua back for next year, and they just want to see they just use a draft pick on him. Like, let's see what he looks like before we go into the offseason and have to make a decision at quarterback.
Right. So clearly with the Jets, the priority is not winning, but on Sunday, the guys that are out there,
they're trying.
They're trying to win.
Right. But as Aaron Glenn even himself said today, was that he wants to, on why Brady Cook's starting, he wants to continue to evaluate him, was his quote. So he used the word that you were using, evaluate, which is kind of what you're supposed to do in the preseason too. But when you're 3-11 and there's 3 games to go, well, that's what the final 3 games are for.
Right. The fact that your coach is coming out and not saying we're using him because he gives us the best chance to win. Like, that's what they're supposed to say. They're supposed to say we're starting Brady Cook because he gives us the best chance to win. They're not saying that. They didn't say that, right? So why do you think that is?
I didn't even think of it like that, but you're 100% right. Usually it's, Tyrod starting because he gives us our best shot to win. Earlier in the year, Fields is starting because we feel he gives us the best shot to win. Now it's Brady Cook starting because we got to see what he is. We're evaluating
evaluate him. Yeah.
Oh goodness. It's honestly, and I know not really on the running order here, but we didn't spend a ton of time on the game on Jacksonville, or no, we're not going to spend a ton of time on the game coming up against New Orleans. But you look at it, New Orleans is playing really good right now. And I know a lot of people had this game circled as a win for the Jets earlier in the year, and hand up, I was one of those people. I I don't think the Jets are going to have much of a shot in this game with the way that they've looked the last couple of weeks, and how the Saints just beat Tampa Bay and Carolina, two teams that are fighting for the lead in the division, and now the Jets are going to go into town and beat them. I think it's going to get ugly the final three games. That's all.
Yeah, and good. I mean, this New Orleans game might be the most important loss since we stupidly beat the Rams. Or the Raiders game where we went nuts when we lost. The tank for Trevor. There's no bigger game for us on our schedule that has bigger implications of our draft position than this one. Right, because not that there aren't other big things that can happen, like the Raiders could win 2 games. Oh my God, that would be amazing. But for us, out of the 3 games we have left, there's no bigger implication than we're playing the Saints. Right after that, we play Buffalo and New England. Obviously, those wins would hurt us in the draft order, but nothing as big as helping the team that is behind you jump in front of you.
Exactly. And, I just pulled up the tankathon and the draft order right now. The Jets are slotted in as the 5th pick. But you have some, important games coming up with the Jets in New Orleans. You have a big one between Vegas and the Giants. I think we got to root like hell for Vegas to win that game, right? You want to continue to move them down.
What's our situation with Vegas? It looks like the strength of schedule is weaker for us. So if Vegas lost, we would jump them, right?
Correct. Or if Vegas wins, you mean we would jump them? Yes.
And Vegas wins, yeah.
Okay. Yes, they would. They have the tiebreaker of the strength of schedule with Vegas, Tennessee, and that's it. And the teams in front of them, it looks like.
So we really need those 2 teams to win.
And you need Cleveland, to win one of their games too.
Yeah. That there's hope for that. There's hope for Cleveland winning a game. They got a good defense. They're trying really hard. I don't think they're tanking, so that's good. Vegas, I don't know. That owner, I could see that owner going into that locker room and saying, if you got anybody who helps this team win this game, we're cutting you. Like that.
With you.
Yeah.
It would be frustrating in a way if Vegas got the number 1 pick, because there's really no shot at the Jets trading up with that. If one of Tennessee or the Giants get the number 1 pick, at least that would be a conversation through the offseason as an option still available to the Jets to find their quarterback.
That's why we want the Raiders to win no matter what, no matter who they're playing. We want the Raiders to win. There's just no argument. Like that's our priority. But the hope is that Kansas City, with Mahomes out, the Raiders hate Kansas City, man. It's one of the biggest rivalries. There's so much hate between those 2 organizations. It's very hard to imagine the Raiders going in there and not trying to win that game and playing, having the pride. The problem is the Chiefs have a pretty good backup quarterback in Minshew. So
yeah. And, the Raiders, they close with Houston this week, who's been red hot. The Giants is the big one on December 28th. And then, as you said, they close the year against Kansas City, the divisional opponent. But it's that time of year. We're looking at the Tankathon draft order and trying to figure out where we're going to end up. One of these years, I hope I'm doing this show with you on December 17th and talking about playoff seeding and how high the Jets could get up in a playoff race, maybe win the division. That'd be something.
Yeah. Sadly, as much as I would wish it was, and anything's possible. Every season's a new season. It doesn't even look like it's going to be next year, right? It's like the most realistically, the hope would be in 2 years from now, we're sitting having that conversation. It's not impossible though. Like you never know 100% what will happen, because we saw Houston do it. We've seen teams do it. We did it 97, from 97 to 98, it was a different coach at that time, but it's not impossible. We've seen teams go from very crappy to squeezing into the playoffs, but it's extremely unlikely. Like, and it's hard. It's difficult. Like that one frustrated person in our chat said, I'm so sick and tired of hearing it's more than the one more, it's going to take more than 1 year to build the roster or fill the holes. I don't know how you meant that, but if you meant it as, the way of just saying, hey,
frustration.
I'm not arguing with it. I'm just frustrated by it. I feel you. I mean, it's exhausting. It's exhausting being here on December 17th and having to admit that I don't think realistically we're going to make the playoffs next season. And we haven't even gotten into the offseason, and I already feel that way. And that is a terrible way to feel, and I hate it. But if I'm being realistic, man, I don't know how you could look at this roster and look at this team and say, yeah, we got a good shot. We can make the playoffs next year.
I don't feel that way. Boss Girl feels differently. He says, guys, what if next year, this time we are talking about a wild card fight and our 3 first-round draft picks coming up? How great would that be?
I think it would be great. It would be great. The only way it could happen is if, and I'm not going to say the name, I don't want to start controversy. If we somehow landed a quarterback, a different quarterback, whoever that is, and they were one of those instant sensations. Because you know what I mean? And a lot of those picks, those 4 picks, we used 3 of them on defense. So let's say we use 3 of them on defense and we hit. We really hit on the defense. We get a really good defensive coordinator and we strike gold with the quarterback. Then I think that would be the only way I can imagine that we could steal a wild card spot, right? Let's say there's a lot of mediocrity in the league, right? A lot of mediocrity in a year where 9-8 gets you into the playoffs with a wild card spot. That'd be the only way I could see it happening, right? I mean, how about you?
I was going to say, if they're like, and this is a low bar, but like 7-7 going into the final 3 games, there is a shot to make the playoffs at 9-8, and there's like 2 or 3 teams who are all kind of in that same range, and duking it out for that 7 seed with a 15-year playoff drought. I think we're all rooting like hell to get in there, right, for that last spot, and I hope that's the position the Jets are in. Way too early, I know, but that's I think unlikely to happen next year, but you never know. They do have a draft. Maybe they find a franchise quarterback, or maybe they get their way up to a number 1 pick, right? Like Rusty Spooner was saying in here a little bit before that he thinks Tennessee is going to beat Kansas City, which would move them down and move the Jets up. And if some other things break right, because the KC, no Mahomes, and they're benching their starters. I don't think Tennessee's that good.
What if Kansas City does that against the Raiders and benches all the starters?
That it's possible. The last week of the year, we've seen it.
We don't know that. I think if there's any owner in the NFL other than the owner of the Miami Dolphins who've already proven his low character, if there's any other owner in the NFL that would literally tell his team, you must lose. In my opinion, the most likely owner to do that outside of the guy in Miami who's already done it is Davis.
Yep. No, I'm with you. I agree.
I honestly believe that he's the most likely. But if he doesn't, Pete Carroll, he's probably gone after this year. Good chance. Like, he's not losing on purpose.
No, God, no.
Pete Carroll's not losing on purpose. So if KC benches all their starters, Pete Carroll's going out there. And I don't know how the owner could go into the locker room and tell Pete Carroll to lose, because Pete Carroll will say no.
Yeah, and then he'd leave.
Right. He's not going to do it. So I don't know. I'm just not giving up on the fact that the Raiders might get a win.
Wyatt, our friend, chimes in with the super chat. Thank you, Wyatt. Says Muji is a shrewd enough operator, and we have enough cap space that anything is possible this offseason. Let's not give up so quickly. This is true, Wyatt. I appreciate the optimism here. It's just hard for me to get my hopes up right now with kind of just where they are, how they're playing right now, and just the 10 straight years of losing seasons. But I appreciate the optimism.
You know why it feels so hopeless, and why it's right? You never know. We might feel more hopeless. We've had off seasons that have turned us. We're famous for that. But I think the real hopelessness comes from, with all the holes we have, the reality is it's the lack of a quarterback. It's not knowing who the future quarterback is. That's the hardest part. So it's kind of like when you have an election for governor or whatever, president or whatever, and it's the guy versus an unknown. It's just that this person versus anybody, and there's not another name. And you can't trust a poll like that because you don't know who the opponent is yet, right? Well, it's the same thing. Without knowing who the quarterback is or how that quarterback is going to play or how that's going to pan out, it just leaves you with a feeling of hopelessness.
It does. No, it really does. And that it sucks. It's not a place that you want to be in as a fan base, but I don't blame anyone who's there right now and is kind of lacking that optimism because the Jets haven't given us a reason to give them the benefit of the doubt with anything they've done recently.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really, it's the last 2 weeks it's just hard to imagine because it's so bad. It's really just so ugly and so bad. But I will say, again, the quarterback could change everything because, somebody had mentioned it, the injuries, right? So if that's a big part of next year too, that would have to go right. If like suddenly we don't have all these injuries, we don't lose key players like GW, right? And, and Brownlee, who's playing really well. If we could stay healthy and get a quarterback that plays well, or have a quarterback that in the offseason we somehow, however it happens, we believe in the quarterback, suddenly maybe we could start seeing a path to 8 wins, 9 wins if everything goes right. Like we could say, oh, we might be able to get there if everything goes right. I think we could all agree on that as a fan base. Even the people that are being hopeful saying you never know, maybe we can get a wild card. Even Wyatt, right, would definitely agree with this. Everything has to go right. No injuries. The quarterback, whoever plays quarterback, plays really well. Every pick that we make, the draft hits, that hit, make impact. Like everything has to go perfectly for us because we are really, really bad right now. Everybody has to understand that. This is not pretend. We have a very bad football team. So to suddenly become an NFL playoff team, everything would have to go perfectly.
It's exactly right. Everything would have to break right for this team. It's not impossible, but they would need a lot of help to get there. We've reached the end of our show. It is 4:00, so we will say goodbye for now. Next week's Christmas Eve, so I don't imagine us doing a show next week. So I'll miss you, Jeremy, and I love you, but we'll be back soon enough.
Oh, no show this week or the week after that? Are we done for the year?
That's a good point. I didn't even think of that. We might be done for the year. We'll be in touch. But I love doing this show. It's always a blast, and the chat makes it a lot of fun too.
Right. If we can't do this show, I'm going to be available. But if we can't do this show, we can we'll do a special. We'll get together and we'll come at a time that we can. We'll do a special live show or something.
I like it. Good plan. But that'll do it for us on this one, guys. Thanks so much for hanging out. I'm Matt. He's Jeremy. We'll catch you next time.